Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the UIC Urban Forum, the People's Money, Pensions, Debt, and Government Services. My name is Michael Pagano. I'm the Dean of the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs and also the Director of the UIC Urban Forum, and I want to welcome all of you. As background, let me just offer a few words. Our collective passion, and I think most of us come from disciplines and interests that have to do with trying to improve cities and improve lives. Our passion to improve our cities and advance our children's education, to improve the movement of people and goods across the city and state and nation, to protect life, liberty, and property, and so much more, require that we as a society come to some agreement about how those desires, needs, rights, aspirations are paid for. We can decide that each person pays her fair share so that the city, county, and state provide for our health, safety, and welfare. General taxes on real estate, retail sales, wages, telecommunications, those general taxes that everyone contributes to the best of her ability, provides the resource base so that services can be delivered. And we, through our elected representatives, can set limits as to how much of each government service we receive. And we can also decide that there are some government services, such as drinking water, that are better provided by government, but that we can charge each person a fee for that service, like parking and tollways and water and sewer. The news of late reminds us that there's also another way of collecting resources to provide for government services above and beyond taxes and fees, and even beyond federal and state aid to local government, and that's through borrowing or debt. Many, if not most, state and local governments issue bonds or borrow money to pay for infrastructure that has a long, useful life, allowing users in the future to not only benefit from using the fixed asset, but also to pay for it. To learn more about infrastructure, by the way, you should have at your seat a book that is a compilation of the white papers from last year's Urban Forum called the Public Infrastructure of Work and Play. So it is our gift to you, so please take it home and enjoy it. But the news of the last few weeks in Chicago is now fixated on another type of borrowing, not for a fixed asset, but for a pension liability. The possibility of a pension obligation bond has been floated by the city. Good or bad, what it illustrates is that pension liabilities in this state, as well as many others, as we will hear shortly, are placing states and localities in precarious fiscal positions. I welcome you to the 2008 Urban Forum, the 7th under the auspices of UIC and the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, to learn more about the pressing issues of debt, pensions, and government services. After all, it's the people's money that pays for the people's services through our government agencies. The order of the day is outlined in the program. After a keynote presentation by the Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle, who will be introduced by our Chancellor Michael Amoritas, 3 moderated panels will follow with approximately 15 minutes of audience question and answer, and a closing keynote by New York's former Lieutenant Governor Dick Ravitch, followed by a box lunch to eat here or take home, so that we can continue to offer the high level of conference next year. Please fill out the evaluation forms that are somewhere in the neighborhood, either in your program or outside. Please leave them in the boxes as you leave. The UIC Urban Forum recognizes our partners in this undertaking, including the MacArthur Foundation, Public Media WBEZ, the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, and the Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement, and in collaboration with the new Government Finance Research Center. Thank you for your support and collaboration. And now, returning to the printed program, UIC's Chancellor Michael Amoritas will now formally and officially welcome you to the UIC Urban Forum and introduce Toni Preckwinkle.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the University of Illinois at Chicago. And a special welcome to our friend from the South Side, Alderman David Moore, who is here with us today, the elected official, the only elected official that we have, in addition to the President, of course. In addition to showcasing our unique College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, the UIC Urban Forum is a key contribution from the university to our shared urban experience. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to gather urban researchers, professionals, policymakers, to discuss the quality of life in our cities and the challenges that we face not only here in this great city that we all love, the great city of Chicago, but also in urban regions around the country and around the world. Since 1995, so we are talking about 23 years now, USC has hosted, and the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs has hosted similar type of events, convening people across the region and the world. And as Dean Pagano mentioned, this is the 7th year under this title for the USC Urban Forum, which is a combination of an academic conference to some extent. I'm glad to see students here as well, but also a professional policy discussion forum. The white papers that have been posted on the website are prepared by academics and by public intellectuals and are used as backdrops, the background for this conference. The panels are built around these white papers, but they are informed by the white papers. They are not actually discussing the white papers. The white papers represent the basis. And these panels, as you noted in the program, bring policymakers and key stakeholders together, and they will discuss and debate and learn more about the critical urban issues of our time. And of course, people's money is a great title. We're talking about our money in this particular case and how is our money handled. 4 of the 6 white papers that will inform the conference discussions were authored by faculty members who are associates of the Government Finance Research Center, or as we call it, GFRC. Now, one thing about UAC, we love acronyms. And I do think actually that we love them more than even the military does. So we have acronyms for everything. So remember, GFRC is the Government Finance Research Center, and it's our newest center under CAPA. Now, what is CAPA? CAPA is the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs. And it's our newest center. It's only 2 months old. And the center also will be hosting a series of workshops over the next 2 months for students that will continue to focus on these discussions, and they will continue to focus on these papers. UIC has an unusually large cluster of faculty members across various disciplines focusing on government finance. And GFRC brings their work together and will promote it to the policymakers at the state and local government level. Not surprisingly, despite the fact that it's very young, the center already is making an impact. A report was recently issued by the Brookings Institution on the topic of city fiscal constraints, and the Associate Director of GFRC, Amanda Cass, has appeared on Chicago Tonight twice in the last month. She already beats my appearance. She was much better than I saw there once, and that's the first and last time that they invited me, speaking about the pension challenges in Chicago and the wisdom of issuing pension obligation bonds. Simultaneously with this forum, another report is being released as we speak today in Washington, D.C., a report on city fiscal conditions, and Mike Pagano, the Dean of the College, is the co-author of this report. And the report actually shows that cities have slowly rebounded from the depths of the Great Recession, but the trajectory is upward and positive, but the city's general funds have only today returned to the 2006 level. So that shows you the challenges that we have. Finally, and before I do what I'm here to do, to introduce President Preckwinkle, finally, I'm really happy to point out that families in Chicago, Illinois, and around the world continue to place their trust in UIC as the foundation of their future. As we announced yesterday, this marks the 4th consecutive year of record enrollment for this university, surpassing now 31,500 students this fall, and leading by far all public universities in the state of Illinois in terms of growth. What does this have to do with the topic of this forum and this forum? This is just the 30-second infomercial that I get as the Chancellor when I introduce you and welcome you to UIC, so I hope that you endure it. Now, I have the pleasure, and I mean it when I'm about to introduce President Preckwinkle, I have the real pleasure of introducing your first keynote speaker, President of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, Toni Preckwinkle. President Preckwinkle was voted into this position as President of the Cook County Board in 2010, and she is the first elected woman to be in this position. She has been a model of public service, having taught Chicago's children as a history teacher in the Chicago public schools. And those of you who know her personally, you know that President Preckwinkle is always a teacher in everything that she does. And that's a great compliment, by the way, to pay to somebody who has been a teacher. She served as development officer for the Hyde Park Neighborhood Club, as an economic development coordinator for the city of Chicago, and as executive director for the Chicago Jobs Council. She also served as alderman for 5 terms overseeing the redevelopment of the Kenwood, Oakland, Douglas, Grand Boulevard, and Hyde Park neighborhoods. During President Preckwinkle's 19-year aldermanic tenure, she became known as one of the Chicago City Council's most progressive members and a champion for affordable housing. She was also a co-sponsor of the living wage ordinances that passed the City Council in 1998 and 2002. President Preckwinkle's service was actually recognized as the best alderman. She received the Best Alderman Award 7 times from IVI-IPO, which is the Independent Voters of Illinois Independent Precinct Organization, which is a non-profit, multi-partisan, independent political organization. So as non-biased as any political organization can be, and they chose President Preckwinkle for their award 7 times during her tenure. We are honored at UIC once again that the Cook County Board President is the co-chair of the UIC Urban Forum. She's a great friend of the university, and she is today's keynote speaker. So please welcome Cook County President Toni Preckwinkle.
Good morning. It's great to see so many of you out here this morning. I would be grateful if you would indulge me. Could the people in the back kind of move to the front a little bit? Let me just tell you, it's much more comfortable for the speakers if they have an audience that's right in front of them. It would be very helpful to those who follow me to be able to see all of you. First of all, the lights are in your eyes, so you can't see in the back anyway. But to engage the audience, if you could move forward, I would be very grateful. It also helps because then those who are latecomers can fill in the back without stumbling over everybody. There's lots of room up front. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. And believe me, those who follow will appreciate it as well. I want to thank you, Chancellor Emeritus, for this opportunity to address perhaps the most important issue we face as public officials, coping with the financial challenges of running government. I took office as president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners in December of 2010. By then, Cook County's fiscal year had begun. But my predecessor left us with no budget, and as the beginning of my term neared, offered little in the way of cooperation to educate us on the enormity and complexity of Cook County's financial condition. I believe that the most important obligation of government is to craft and pass a budget. So compounding the fact that we had no budget was the immediate realization that there was little to no process in place to develop one. I ran on the need to make Cook County government more truly serve its residents. To do so, I recognized quickly that we had to rethink the way that Cook County did business in order to transform it. For too long, Cook County had been content to put a new coat of paint on the house when what it needed was a top-to-bottom rehab. I tapped a transition team composed of leaders in the civic, philanthropic, and business community. They created a report that outlined a plan to structurally reform Cook County government. These initiatives spanned all areas of county government, from imposing a moratorium on non-essential capital projects to restructuring county debt. It was very clear that this report would not sit on a shelf and gather dust. Given the challenges we were facing, starting with the need to close a budget gap of $487 million, we did not have that luxury. The transition team outlined 37 initiatives that met the charge I had given them to make Cook County more efficient, more transparent, and more responsive. And I'm pleased to say we've accomplished all of them. Some were easier than others, believe me. But here are a few examples. We established the Bureau of Economic Development to provide a common strategy across all county resources for business, economic, and workforce development in this region. We audited our real estate holdings to reduce the annual cost of occupying space and office space and warehouses space, and to make the best use of our assets. We improved energy efficiency by greening county buildings to generate long-term savings by reducing energy costs. We've made budget information much more publicly accessible and budget decisions more transparent. Since taking office in 2010, we've closed $2.1 billion in budget gaps and cut expenditures by more than $850 million. We've avoided quick fixes and one-time solutions. Instead, we've installed sound fiscal discipline and ensured that more than 90% of our annual budgetary solutions are structural in nature. We've reduced our full-time workforce by 13%, including the elimination of more than 1,000 positions in fiscal year 2018 alone, many of which were vacancies. Through a combination of fiscal prudence and the advent of the Affordable Care Act, God bless President Obama, we have reduced the direct health care tax allocation from $389 million in 2010 to $102 million in 2018. That amount covers the cost of health care for the detainee population of our correction system and funds our public health system, both services we are required to fund by law. I think I saw Jay Shannon, the CEO of our health and hospital system, come in. Jay, are you here? I just want to thank him and his staff for their great work. They just passed an accreditation review by the Joint Commission with flying colors, and it reflects the quality of care that we're able to deliver to the people of Cook County. We've done all this good work, still providing over $500 million in uncompensated charity care to Cook County residents. We're also pushing for criminal justice reform, and we've done that principally through bond reform and achieved a sustained reduction in the pre-trial detainee population in our jail. And that has allowed us to demolish a number of buildings on the jail campus, allowing us to reduce costs that reflect the lower detainee population. Through collaborative efforts with our public safety stakeholders, that's the chief judge, the sheriff, the state's attorney, the public defender, and the clerk of the court, the jail population is now at its lowest since 1991. For years, the daily jail population hovered around 10,000. Today, it's approximately 6,000 because of the efforts of our stakeholders. We've also invested millions in community-based programming to reduce violence and recidivism and keep people out of the criminal justice system entirely. We've worked with the legislature to dramatically decrease the automatic transfer of young people to adult court and have overseen the end of the federal monitoring at the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. These efforts have resulted in a decline in our detained youth population of 45% since 2009. When I took office, I asked for a list of the property owned by Cook County. Much to my chagrin, no single consolidated list existed. So we created one, and it quickly became apparent the county's real estate footprint far exceeded our needs. So we're knocking down unused or underutilized buildings and restacking office space with a commitment to meet our goal of reducing our real estate footprint by 1 million square feet in the coming year. We've developed and implemented a plan to prevent insolvency in the years ahead by providing increased contributions to the pension fund. We recognized the problem with the funding mechanism and took definitive steps to address it in a responsible manner. We're dedicating supplemental funding to shore up the pension fund to the tune of $350 million plus annually over the statutorily required contribution. Most of you know that we've been able to do this by increasing the sales tax by a penny. I assure you this was a difficult decision for me, as I'd campaigned on rolling back the sales tax increased by my predecessor. But this is a job that involves making tough decisions, and I was unwilling to sit back and watch a $6 billion pension fund shortfall increase by $1 million a day. We made the decision to push forward with the increase, and thanks to the brave votes of 9 of our commissioners, we got it passed. And despite fiscal year 2015 being a very difficult budget year, the county is on track to pay the full supplemental pension payment and will have paid nearly $1 billion over the past 3 years to shore up our pension fund. We're also working to put the county on more sound financial footing by being more judicious and careful about how we incur and pay down debt. Despite having to account for borrowing that predated my administration, we've decreased outstanding debt by more than $450 million, or 12%, since 2011. We have further implemented a structure for new issuances, new bond issuances, that limits the rise in debt service to no more than 2%. We do this by ensuring we are not bonding for settlement costs, pensions, or other non-capital purposes, and by using operating funds and not debt to buy assets that have shorter lifespans, such as computers. These may seem like common sense steps, and maybe they are, but they were revolutionary to some extent for a government that had suffered from bad fiscal practices for many, many years. I am pleased that our efforts have been recognized by all major bond rating agencies who have assigned investment-grade bond ratings for our bonds and have allowed our county to borrow at much lower costs compared to other large local governments in Illinois. I instituted performance management, which has been a key to driving improvements in transparent fiscal management. Through performance management, we have executed a county-wide inventory for a program-based budget and transformed the data collected by departments to focus on efficiency and success metrics. Performance management has further allowed us to implement zero-based budgeting exercises and cemented a culture of accountability through our STAR sessions, set targets, achieve results. We've increased funds available to invest across the county for highway and transportation infrastructure, the point of last year's forum, by 103% since 2015. We also commissioned a Cook County Long-Range Transportation Plan, which was adopted in 2016. It's the county's first strategic transportation plan in more than 75 years and was developed to guide us on where and how the county invests in transportation to more fully realize its opportunities and to attract and retain businesses, people, capital, and talent. We've invested in guaranteed energy savings performance contracts, saving the county nearly $8.6 million and significantly decreasing the energy use in the first 2 years of implementing those contracts. Additionally, greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced by 37,000 metric tons, the equivalent of removing almost 8,000 passenger vehicles from the roads for 1 year. Not long ago, many county workers were signing in and out on paper timesheets. The potential for fraud was great, and we were determined to stop it. We've implemented a biometric time and attendance system, which has simplified reporting for our workforce, reduced the potential for fraud, and increased accountability while providing a strong return on investment for county government. We've updated our vehicle use policy to ensure centralized and consistent fleet management in the spirit of shared and consolidated services, part of the administration's pledge to improve operations county-wide. Additionally, the county and the sheriff's office have worked together to streamline the maintenance of all county vehicles. When I started, we had no real system in place to collect data, track progress, or identify areas in need of improvement concerning our efforts to provide business opportunities to minority and women-owned businesses. Let me say that again. We had no means to evaluate our work or fully understand the immensity of our challenges. Saying we were behind the times is an understatement. The county now produces an annual diversity report. This report can help increase transparency, improve accountability, and encourage much-needed economic development. I've tried to give you a picture of how we have made stewardship of the public's money a top priority in my almost 8 years in office. Let me say that with this exhaustive list, none of this was easy. We've had our successes, but as board president, I'm responsible for not just what happens today, but I must also keep an eye on the future. Although the county has a diverse revenue base, expenditures rise over time due to inflationary pressures, with medical trends for health benefits and several other categories of expenditures growing faster than general inflation. Unfortunately, natural growth in our revenues struggles to keep pace. This makes structurally balancing the budget difficult and necessitates hard decisions. To cope with our revenue needs, sustain our critical services, and to establish a 3-year financial plan, we settled on a penny per ounce tax on sweetened beverages. What I believed then and what I believe now is that this was good public policy. But as we learned, it was not good politics. After I cast the tie-breaking vote to get the tax passed, we spent months fending off a multi-million-dollar campaign by the soda companies and business groups. We fought them in the public arena and in court, but ultimately, pressure forced our commissioners to roll back the tax. The repeal left us with an additional $200 million gap in our budget, which we closed largely by eliminating vacancies, more than 1,000 of them, and by laying off workers. This is what I alluded to earlier. The county's budget is more than $5 billion. That's a lot of money by any measure. Yet I want to point out that 90% of our expenditures are in the public health and public safety arenas. In truth, the departments which operate under my authority comprise less than 8% of our budget. Ensuring that the budget is balanced each year involves a great deal of pulling, tugging, and collaboration, with not just our commissioners who ultimately must pass the budget, but also with the independently elected officials who run county offices. I am committed to ensuring the sustainability of our public health system and to continued reform of our criminal justice system. My budget proposals reflect this philosophy. Nonetheless, the challenges with cost rising and many revenue streams declining or flattening are real and not about to end. I don't shy away from the challenge. I'm proud of what we've done, and I look forward to continued service to the residents of Cook County. Thank you. Now, Dean Pagano informs me that we have time for a few questions. How would you like to handle this, Dean? We have people with microphones, I'm told. Okay. So I guess if you raise your hand, someone will come to you with a microphone. That's the plan? Now, I would point out that I only come here once a year, so if you've got questions, this is a good time to ask them. Not quite true. I come to Dick Simpson's class every year as well.
Hi, thanks for your comments, and they were really interesting. I have just a basic informative question, or you said, if I heard you right, that only 8% of the budget is under your authority, and I guess I didn't really understand what you meant by that. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
So Cook County is unique. If you think of the city of Chicago, there are 3 citywide elected officials, the mayor, the clerk, and the treasurer. In the county, however, there are 11 separately elected officials. Each has their own bailiwick. And as president of the County Board of Commissioners, I'm responsible for preparing the budget, but I have to prepare that budget in collaboration and cooperation with 11 separately elected officials. So if you think about it, we have an assessor, we have a treasurer, we have a clerk of the county, we have a recorder of deeds. So that's property and taxation. In the public safety arena, we have the sheriff, the clerk of the court, the state's attorney. The public defender is an appointee under the offices of the president. We have 3 members of the board of review. I think I got everybody. So we have the chief judge. The chief judge is an elected official but chosen by other judges. So people who are directly under my supervision comprise 8% of our budget. But as I said, I'm nonetheless responsible for preparing the budget for the entire county. More questions?
Hi.
Would you advocate right back here?
Yes?
Way back here, over
Yes.
here.
Oh,
Hi.
there you go.
Hi. Would you then advocate for a consolidation within Cook County of those functions?
The voters of Cook County decided to consolidate the offices of Recorder of Deeds and Clerk. So we will have, starting in 2020, one less countywide elected official. But yes, I would be in favor of consolidation.
Hi, my name is Kendra.
Thank you for introducing yourself, Kendra.
You're welcome. So I know you mentioned something about criminal justice reform, and I just want to know, like, what new initiatives you all are taking to reform, I guess, Cook County Jail, because people are being taken into custody daily because of nonviolent offenses, and also what about those who are being held because of bond for years and even months because they can't simply afford bond for nonviolent offenses?
So one of the things that we did when we came in was say that we wanted to work on criminal justice reform. We brought the stakeholders together. I'll give an abbreviated answer. We brought the stakeholders together in March of 2011 and said, and the stakeholders, again, are the sheriff, the state's attorney, the public defender, the clerk of the court, the chief judge. Did I miss anybody? There are 5. Any case, we brought them together and they all said there are too many people in the jail, to Kendra's point, accused of nonviolent crimes who are there because they can't pay their bond. Now, how we got to the present day is a long story, but let me just say, working together, we have reduced the number of people in the jail from 10,000 to 6,000. That's a 40% reduction in the jail population, mostly by getting people out of the jail who are accused of nonviolent crimes and could not pay their bond. So what we did, working together and at the direction of the chief judge, judges in bond court now have a default position for nonviolent crimes of release on your own recognizance, that is a promise that you'll come to your hearings and your trial, or electronic monitoring, or both. So when we started this process, 10,000 people in the jail, 2/3 of the people who came into bond court, which is the portal of entry into our criminal justice system, 2/3 got cash bonds, and 1/3 were released on their own recognizance or got electronic monitoring. We've reduced the number of people, and it's, again, mostly people accused of nonviolent crimes, drug offenses, prostitution, shoplifting, things people do to get money for their drugs, not paying their child support, not paying their traffic tickets. Jails in this country are poorhouses. Now, 2/3 of the people who come into bond court are released on their own recognizance or electronic monitoring, and 1/3 get cash bond. So we reduced dramatically the reliance on cash bond and driven down the jail population as a result. Now, we think we can further reduce the jail population, and we are going to try. But one of the unintended consequences, of course, is that the jail population is no longer leavened by the people who shouldn't have been there in the first place. So the jail is a much more difficult place to work. And the people who work in the jail as deputy sheriffs are in jail, I like to say, the same as the detainees. So the jail is a more problematic place to manage as the population has declined because of the composition of the people who are in the jail. But again, the people in our jail, the overwhelming majority, I think it's 93%, are awaiting trial. They're pre-trial detainees. They have not yet been convicted of the crime of which they're accused. Only about 7% are serving a sentence, and that's what we should remember, because many of these folks will have the charges dropped against them, or they may be found innocent when they come to trial. But they are pre-trial detainees. There's a hand right here, and if you stand up and speak.
My question relates somewhat to this too, that we hear that another part of the population of the jails is often due to recidivism. And I've been hearing off and on about efforts to do something to prepare people who are finishing their sentences to go back to their communities with some assistance with workforce development. Could you comment on where that's at and continuing as an effort?
You know, I apologize, I don't have the exact number here, and I don't remember off the top of my head. But one of the things we started doing about 3 or 4 years ago, where's Frank? How many years ago was it, Frank, we started doing our grants?
It was 3 or 4, 5 years ago when we entered
Right. So previously, the county had spent an incredible amount of money on the criminal justice system, but it had never invested in trying to keep people out of jail or trying to prevent people who'd been in jail from going back or trying to deal with violence in our communities. And so as Frank just said, you know, we now have grants to community organizations, anti-violence grants, anti-recidivism grants, restorative justice grants, efforts to support community efforts to reduce violence and to reduce the likelihood that people who have been involved in our criminal justice system go back. And I apologize that I don't have on the top of my head the amount of money that we've spent, but it's millions of dollars, and it's the first time the county has ever made an effort to do something about the pipeline into our criminal justice system. More questions?
Hi, Mrs. Preckwinkle, thank you. So now that I'm sorry, I'm Liliana Fargo, I'm professor at DePaul.
Thank you.
Now that Mayor Rahm Emanuel has announced to stepping down from the mayoral office, I wonder if you will be willing to confirm or deny that you are considering running for mayor of the city of Chicago, and what do you think will be the key issues to address for the city?
So my first response is nice try. You know, I think the quality of our public schools, economic and community development in our neighborhoods, and police-community relations are the issues that I would put at the top of the agenda for whoever's pursuing the office of mayor. And I've spoken today, of course, about the fiscal challenges which override all of it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Shane Mistel. First of all, I'd like to thank you for voting against the parking meter deal back in 2008.
Yes, long ago, but true.
My question is related to that. As you saw in 2008, Chicago passed a historic parking meter deal that as of 10 years of now, it's already losing money from, I guess, the existing deal. And I was wondering, in the future, assets like that, and I guess looking back, how has the city learned and will move forward as far as preventing something like that happening again, where we can utilize assets like that and just, you know, make a small investment over time to eventually, you know, capitalize on it in our own?
So, you know, I have to say that when I was in the city council, I voted for a number of privatization deals, the garages under Grant Park, the Skyway. But when the proposal came before us to basically privatize our street parking, I thought it was a terrible mistake. What happened in the later years of the Daley administration is that they were so fearful of raising taxes that they sold off assets that might have been better preserved as an income stream for the people of the city of Chicago. And surely our street parking is a classic example of that. The projections that I have seen subsequently are that the investors will get their money back in 20 years, and they have a 99-year lease. So I didn't think then, I don't think now that this was a good idea. I think as a government, you have to be very careful about asset sales, and it should not be your go-to option when you're looking for resources. It's much better, as you say, to invest in the assets that you have, and if you're considering disposing of them, to try to have some kind of public-private partnership that continues to provide public ownership and perhaps a revenue stream in the way that we did with the old Cook County Hospital. We have a private development team that's developing there. They have a lease, but they pay rent to the county. And of course, they will pay taxes on the property. So we're very careful about this whole issue of asset sales. And I think in Chicago in the 1990s and 2000s, as I said, is part of the reluctance of the mayor to raise property taxes, which, you know, it's the kind of thing that you could beat the stuffing out of by the Tribune whenever you do it. We ended up in a terrible hole in using asset sales and bond sales inappropriately.
Back here.
I think
Back
one
here.
more question, the dean tells me.
I'm back here. Back here, President Toni Preckwinkle.
There you go, I see you.
Hi.
All right.
Good
I'm sorry, the
morning.
lights make it hard.
That's okay. My name is Lubia. I had a question that refers back to the Cook County jails. I wrote my question down. Cook County Jail has long been considered to be the nation's largest mental health facility. Given the lack of mental health services available across Cook County and most notably here in Chicago, what initiatives is the county investing in to address mental health and recidivism as well?
Okay, first, I should say, you know, the city of Chicago over the last several years has closed mental health clinics as a way of saving money. But let me just say, that's not saving money, that's cost shifting. Because what happens when people don't get mental health treatment, they end up in crisis in our emergency room, as Dr. Shannon could testify, or they end up in our jail because they've been acting out. So disinvesting in mental health and behavioral health services is a terrible idea. But Dr. Shannon and the health and hospital team asked when we did our Medicaid expansion program called County Care, which I hope you're familiar with, and which now serves more than 330,000 people in our county, included behavioral health services, substance abuse services among the menu that was available to our participants in the program, among the services available to the participants in our program. So the county began to invest in behavioral health services in a way that it had not previously, frankly, ratcheted up considerably our investments in behavioral health and substance abuse services to the credit of Dr. Shannon and his team. So we're trying to serve our residents in Cook County and compensate for the city's disinvestment in behavioral health. Thank you.